Good evening, Xavier basketball fans. The RaGing X Report is on the air. I'm your host, Jim Reeker. We're going to talk all about the Xavier Musketeer basketball team, and I'm going to introduce right now our analyst, Bill Gabriel. How are we doing tonight, Bill?
I'm doing great, Jim. How are you this evening?
Oh, pretty good. Winter's come a little early. It feels like we're in the middle of January. We saw a barn burner the other night, which we'll talk about. Made it feel like it was mid-season. But just to review, the Xavier Musketeers are 3-0 now after defeating Siena 81-63 last Friday night, and then again an overtime victory over Mizzou 63-58 in overtime. So they're 3-0, ranked 21st in the nation in the AP poll. So let's talk about that Siena game. Pretty good game. I'm looking at team statistics. Shot about 43% from the field, 31.6 from three-point, free throw percentage 67.7, only 11 turnovers. What was your take on that game?
Hey, I thought that that was a game where, they really didn't have an answer for Tyreek Jones down in the low post, and obviously he flexed his strength down there and knocked in 20 points. Had a really efficient night scoring the basketball. Najee Marshall also dumped in 20 points, so the two of them were more than the Siena defense could handle. I really thought that for the Muskies, though, their defense, man, they were lights out on D. I think sometimes the Siena players were passing just so they did not have to be the guy who had the ball in his hand. They did a great job on Siena's leading scorer, and I think they held him to 18 points in the contest, but I think he had like 14 going into the half. They really did a great job on him the second half. And, it was just that were the bright points of the game for them, just a solid defensive performance and huge games from Tyreek and Najee.
Yeah, and you talk about that defense, and that has been the one constant over the first three games is pretty good defense. And I know last year Travis Steele said that they were going to be a great defensive team. They didn't start out that way. Do you think he's finally gotten this team to understand how he wants them to play defense and how intense they have to play this defense at this level?
Well, I think that is a great point that, I don't think they win that Missouri game if they weren't playing defense at that high level, because, that was a huge factor in them ending up winning that game.
Yeah, and let's talk about that Missouri game. They got off to a pretty decent start, built a fairly decent lead. If I'm not mistaken, I think it was up to 15. I know it was into the double digits, although they let the Tigers kind of cut it back down, I think, to single digits, maybe 7 at half. And then it became what a lot of people call a rock fight in the second half. Defense was good. Offense, stats I'm looking at, about 33% from the field, 14% from three-point range, and we'll talk about that. Maybe the most positive out of it, and probably what won them the game, was their free throw percentage, shooting about 74%, 20 for 27. And actually, I think they made 8 more free throws than Missouri, and again, the difference being 5 points, you can kind of attribute that was probably the thing that got them by. But what was your take on it? Thoughts about that game?
Oh, yeah, that was one of my key points, man. They not only did they get to the free throw line, they knocked them down. Yeah, 20 out of 27. Those were huge points for them in that game Tuesday night. And then, you just cannot applaud their defensive effort enough. I mean, they kept playing defense. Even once Missouri got their, couple point lead, I think they stretched it out to 5 points, maybe 6. Right there, it was about 4.5 minutes to go in the game. It was kind of right in there, and you could just feel like, man, they were just making it so hard on them to score that if Xavier could do anything on the offensive end, they stood a chance. And luckily, they ran that nice little play there at the end where Najee hit the three-pointer from the top of the key that, tied it up, and then they were able to pull away in the extra frame.
So can this team be successful through their defense this season? Do you see that's what they're going to hang their hat on? Or are they going to have to improve their offensive game to be successful in the Big East?
I think it's yes and yes. I think their defense is the thing that they're going to have to hang their hats on as a team, take pride in just having a solid defensive effort every night, trying to limit teams as much as they can. And at the same time, I think their offense is going to get better. And there's a couple of things that are going to flow into that. I think the first thing is Demir Bishop's going to get more comfortable. The flip side, and along with him, Kiki Tandy hasn't even set foot on the floor yet, and they say he may be the best three-point shooter on the team. And then the stats last year, they're not going to lie. Paul Scruggs is a 35% three-point shooter. He was closer to 37 last year. He's there. So he's going to start knocking them down at some point. Jason Carter, he's a 35+% three-point shooter. He's going to be there at the end of the year. So at some point they're going to go down. As a good buddy of mine who coaches told me as we were talking about the game on the way out of work today, sometimes it's really hard to knock open the wide open ones, and they were taking some pretty wide open ones. So maybe that was just part of it. And, they weren't being contested. And because, I thought the threes they were taking were shots they should be taking.
Well, I agree with you. I think Paul Scruggs, we've seen him knock down the three-pointers. You brought up the statistic, 35% last year. That's a pretty decent clip. And, yeah, Jason Carter, I didn't know that was his percentage. But when he took his shots, they looked good. I don't know. They didn't go in, but they looked like decent shots, that they were just a little bit off, a little long, a little short. Didn't find the bottom of the rim. Let's talk about Jason Carter a little bit. We got to see him probably in his most extended action this season. He's been a little bit banged up. 12 points, 11 rebounds, double-double in his first start, I believe, for the Musketeers. Talk about how you think he'll help the Musketeers this year.
Well, I really think that just the stuff I read in the paper and was, gathering from the social media posts that they had, that, they were really excited to have him. It kind of seemed like they could run some of the offense through him, and that the guys were really excited to play with him because he was so unselfish and made the right plays. And you could kind of see that, with Missouri, a lot of stuff going through him. He kind of figured it out. Hey, I'm not hitting my three-pointers tonight. I'm going to pump fake, and now I'm going to go get a better shot. And he hit a couple pull-up jumpers from, the 8 to 12-foot range that were huge in the overtime and at the end of the regulation. And he just kind of, he still had the wide open three, just didn't force that because he realized he wasn't hitting them. And I think, he's an intelligent player. You just watch him. He's patient when he's got the ball. So I think they're really planning to run a lot of offensive stuff through him. And, it looks like that's something he's going to be pretty comfortable doing. I didn't seem like he was out of his element at all.
And, of course, the freshman Zach Fremantle didn't get, I think he had maybe 12 minutes, still picked up 6 points and 3 rebounds. He continues to impress, and I think we're going to see him play quite extended minutes during the season, maybe gain more and more as the season goes on. What are your thoughts about Zach?
Oh, I love watching that kid play, man. He gets after it. He hustles. He defends really well. I mean, I was impressed because they switched everybody with him out there, and there's a couple times he was on a guard and kept him in front of him, and didn't let him blow by him. So I think, he's definitely going to continue to earn minutes. I think, his minutes were limited a little bit on Tuesday because Tyreek didn't get in foul trouble. I want to say he had right at 3 or less fouls. I can't remember exactly, but he was not in foul trouble at all. They had gotten the center for Missouri in foul trouble, and then, really they didn't have anybody who was going to, who they were too concerned with down low. But I just think Tyreek was playing hard and rebounding stuff. He struggled a little bit offensively, but I just think that was probably more of the reason why he didn't get more minutes. But I could see Zach Fremantle being anywhere from 12 to 16 minutes on average per game, and picking up more if Tyreek gets in foul trouble.
Yeah, Tyreek, I'm not sure, but my recollection was he picked up his first foul in overtime. And, of course, that was a complete turnaround from the season before when they went to Missouri. I believe Tyreek got 2 quick fouls, was sitting on the bench, and Tillman, their big man, just dominated the Musketeers and got them down by, I think, 30 at one point in that game. So this was a complete reversal that Tillman got in foul trouble very, very early. I think he had 2 fouls maybe in the first 3 or 4 minutes and sat down for the remainder of the first half. And I think that kind of hurt the Tigers a little bit because they'd like to play through him. And I also never thought, and Coach Steele said he thought Tyreek was one of the reasons, but he never really got his game going. And he said that he thought Tyreek, even though he didn't have great offensive numbers, in this game he contributed immensely with his defense. It's Najee Marshall and Quentin Gooden, 2 leaders of this team. Najee had great offensive numbers again, 17 points, 8 rebounds, 3 assists, but he had 4 turnovers. And Quentin Gooden, 6 turnovers. Is that a problem, or was that a result of the Tigers' defense?
I mean, I'm going to give the Tigers a little credit on that, but, I mean, we talked about that in our opening preview podcast. A huge secret to Xavier's success this year was going to be limiting turnovers, and I think Q and Najee in particular are it because they are both already at 9 turnovers in 3 games. And so those are the big numbers they already have. And so they both got to take care of the ball better, and not make either poor decisions with passing the ball or trying to do too much off the dribble and losing the ball. Just having a plan when they do something. I think sometimes there's turnovers coming out because they don't have a plan, or they don't have plan B when plan A falls apart ready. So.
Yeah, and I felt like maybe Travis Steele sat Quentin Gooden down for a while in the second half because of his turnovers. Actually, Paul Scruggs was running the point for some extended minutes there in the second half. Question, Kiki Tandy, is he going to be ready soon? What are we hearing? Will that give him another option out front? It's hard to tell. We haven't seen him play, but what are your thoughts about, will he be a contributing factor this year? And will he help in that situation if Quentin's throwing the ball away? Maybe Travis goes to him to play some point guard.
Well, I sure hope he can get on the floor soon. I know coaches like to see how players do in these preseason games and develop some trust in them. And the sooner he can get out there and start demonstrating that he has the understanding of the offense and the defense, will be in the right spots, the more they will trust him. It's not so much that he can jack up the ball and score buckets. He's got to do those other things just as well. So, but I know with a foot injury, he's probably not getting the reps and practice that he needs to physically. So, and maybe his conditioning is now, since he's out of the boot and starting to do some jogging. Was the last report I heard that they'll get him back into some semblance of shape and hopefully be able to start working him in there as they continue through the next few weeks of these non-conference games.
One last thing, and I was going to bring this up, and we've talked a little bit about the defense, but obviously an emphasis with the new stop and kill board in the Cintas Center and the barking when they get 2 stops, almost a kill. What are your thoughts about that? Do you think that's just a way for Travis Steele to bring more emphasis to defense for the team? Do you like the idea? What are your thoughts about that?
Oh, I think it's a pretty cool idea. I don't know if there's a lot of other people doing that, if they borrowed the idea or came up with the idea on their own. I'm not too aware on that, but I like it. I mean, it's kind of cool. You look up there and you're like, wow, they've hit the 7 kills, and I remember thinking that in the Missouri game, and he said 7 kills is a win, and I'm a little worried right now because they were down due to the fact that Missouri probably had that many kills on them. But I like that it does attract attention to defensive. But I think the Cintas Center fans have always been pretty aware of the defensive abilities of the Musketeers when they're out there and appreciating those efforts.
Yeah, I think a lot of teams use that. I know Chris Mack used it the entire time he was at Xavier. I guess they've been tracking it since the 11-12 season. So 7-8 years they've been doing it, but now they've put more emphasis on it and awareness of the crowd. In fact, I read a stat that since they've been tracking it, they've had 74 games where they had 7 or more kills, and that's their goal, to get 7 kills in a game. And of those 74 games that they've had 7 or more kills, they've only lost 5. So I guess it is a stat that is something you go for and pretty much almost assures you a win. Although, yeah, again, they had, I think, 10 the other night and actually came close to losing that game. So it doesn't necessarily 100% assure you a win, but it gives you a pretty good chance of winning. The other thing, I think they even keep a record. The record, and if this is right, they were very close to it, is 11 in a game. And, again, I thought they had 10 the other night against Missouri. Any other thoughts about the Missouri game? Again, it was a big win over an SEC opponent. They were picked to be 13th in the SEC. Again, a lot of people think that they're going to do a lot better than that, but only time will tell. But any parting thoughts about the Missouri game until we move on to their state counterparts, the Missouri State Bears?
We'll stay in the Show Me State and move on over to Missouri State.
Missouri State Bears, who are from the Missouri Valley Conference. I don't know if you know this or not. This is the first time the Xavier Musketeers and the Missouri State Bears have met up ever. Just for fans, I looked this up because I thought this team used to be called Southwest Missouri State. Actually, it was in 2005 they changed the name of the university to Missouri State. So if you recall, I believe Alfred, who played at Indiana, I think coached there for a little while. before some of his other, before he went to Iowa and ultimately UCLA. Bears are 2-1 coming in tomorrow night. They lost to the University of Arkansas at Little Rock by 1 point in their opener, but have bounced back to defeat Alabama State, and the other night they beat Cleveland State by 20 points. So what should we look for with the Bears?
Well, the Bears are the preseason number 1 picked team by the coaches of the Missouri Valley Conference, and they come at us with 3 players that are recognized in their conference for some preseason or at least postseason accolades from last year. And I'm going to screw this up. Kinnick Cook. I know I screwed up his first name. I apologize for that.
Keandre.
He comes in. Keandre. There we go. I can't read my own writing. He comes in at a 19.3 average per game, and is their team leader right now in those based on the first 3 games. He was preseason second team in the conference choice, and their second leading scorer, Lamont West. He comes in averaging 10 points a game, and he is a first-year player for them. So he was on their preseason newcomer team or something, or preseason third-team pick already, and he just transferred in. But he's from West Virginia, where he was West Virginia's leading scorer whenever he was last there. I think it was the year before since he transferred. And then their center or forward, nobody wants to be called a center anymore, one of their post players, their leading rebounder, is Tulio De Silva, and he averages 9.3 boards a game and is averaging 9.7 points. But last year he was the newcomer of the year in the Miami or the Missouri Valley Conference, and he and Keandre Cook are in the same class as sophomores. So they got a young, solid squad there coming in for head coach Dana Ford.
Yeah, and I think De Silva, I read somewhere was the MVC preseason player of the year. So he obviously is a rebounding force. Going to be interesting to see what Tyreek can do with him. The other thing that caught my eye, Keandre Cook shooting over 50% from 3-point range. Short sample there, but that's pretty impressive.
Yeah, if Xavier had somebody hitting close to 50%, there would have been no contest in their first 3 games.
Yeah, you made that comment early in the season. What did you say that you wanted them to shoot from 3-point range, or they needed to shoot? You thought
anything in north of 30% as a team. And their team average last year was, I want to say it was like 33%, 32%, I can't remember. But that was helped out a lot by the fact that Scruggs and Ryan Wellich shot it so well. They really helped pick up Najee's. I think he was like almost 28% last year from the 3-point line, and definitely not even close to that number this year starting out.
Yeah, and as a team, I think they shot 14% the other night, 3 for 21, whatever that figures out. Hopefully that was an aberration for the season. Other local, I don't know if you saw this, but the Lamont West, who played for Bob Huggins of West Virginia, actually is a Cincinnati product. I don't know if you saw that.
No, I did not.
He actually attended Withrow High School for 3 years, and then he transferred to one of those academies somewhere else, at Georgia or somewhere else. He went to play his 4th year of high school, but so So he's actually from Cincinnati, Ohio, and he's averaged I think 10 points so far. So again, he's a big boy too. He's 6'8". So again, they got some length and some size, and again, the MVC, that's a pretty decent basketball conference. Used to be Wichita State until they went to, I think, the American, but for years Illinois State's been pretty good there. I think Northern Iowa might be in that. Some pretty good basketball schools that come out of the MVC. So the fact that the Bears are the preseason favorites, they could give the Musketeers a game.
I definitely think that they will be a step up between the Siena and probably a little bit closer in talent level to what Missouri had, although probably not as deep and maybe not as athletic at some of their other spots. I think, that was the one thing. Missouri just kept coming off with a bench with another tall, lanky kid who could move and handle the ball and get in your face and play defense. And I think that, that was a little bit of it for them Tuesday night. But, hopefully Missouri State doesn't have that level of depth, and Xavier can take advantage of their areas of strength and get a big W.
Yeah, and of course, the odd thing too about this is Missouri State will be in the Charleston Classic, which the Musketeers will be playing in next week. They're in the opposite bracket on the other side. There is a chance, though, that they may meet again somewhere down the road. It would have to be next Sunday in the finals. That's the only way they would play. But if you recall, a couple of years ago, they played, I think it was Northern Iowa, and played them in a tournament, and then turned around, had to play them the next week, because I guess what it is, you may know more of this, the NCAA allows you one event, and they allow you 4 games in that event, but because these tournaments are usually 3 games, then if you match up with somebody else in the event, then it all only counts as 1 game in the schedule. Is that your understanding of the rule of why the teams do this?
Yeah. So they get lumped together as one contest out of your total allotment. So that's why teams do that, which is, hey, it gets you an extra game, and really helps your teams out. They get an extra chance to play. So that's exactly what I think why they do that.
I told you I just was going through the channels, and Towson State, who will be, and we'll preview that tournament early next week, but Towson State, who is the Musketeers' first opponent, they were actually playing Florida tonight. And Florida, also in that Charleston Classic, they're in the bracket across from the Musketeers also. All right, well, we'll be looking forward to that game. That game tips off at 7 o'clock, another Friday night game at the Cintas. Any following thoughts or final thoughts about the Missouri State Bears before we move on to Musketeer trivia?
Bring on the trivia, Jim.
All right. Tonight's topic is Quentin Gooden. And we talked about this. Quentin Gooden has been the leading Xavier basketball player in assists for the first 3 years that he has played for the Musketeers. Of course, he's been starting all 3 years, came in halfway through his freshman year to replace Samaje Christian after he was injured. If he is the leading assist man this year, although Najee's given him a run for his money already, Najee's had a lot of assists, but if he would be the leading assist man this year, he would only be the second Xavier player in history to go 4 straight seasons as being the assist leader. Can you tell me the other Musketeer that was the assist leader for 4 straight years?
Ooh. Let me think. Was it Walker?
Jamal Walker is not correct. I'll give you a hint. He played from 1995 to 1999,
Oh.
And to juggle your memory a little bit. Remember,
Gary Lumpkin?
You got it. Gary Lumpkin, who had 470 total assists. He actually is in 7th place on the all-time list, just one spot ahead of Q. Q will actually probably pass him. He's 14 behind him. We would hope Q passes him in about 3 or 4 games. But, again, the notoriety of Gary Lumpkin was the leading assist man on the Xavier team from 1995-1999. And, again, if Quentin Gooden can have a year like he's had the last 3 and leads the team in assists, he will be the second man in Xavier basketball history to do that. And, again, he has an outside chance. He's going to have to get it going. I think he only had maybe 1 or 2 assists the other night. He's going to have to get his game on. I hope Q just had a bad game. He seems to sometimes start slow, but hopefully he'll get things going. I think he's an important guy for this team to be successful, and he doesn't have to score. I think he just needs to run the team. And I will give him credit, even though he didn't play very well offensively, he played very well defensively the other night. I recall him having 2 or 3 steals out around midcourt where he had easy layups to help the Musketeers get going when they were needing something like that. So you only needed 1 hint. That's pretty good.
He was on my list, my short list I compiled in my head real quick.
All right. Well, I'm Jim Raker. He's Bill Gabriel. We want to thank the Grueling Truth Network for allowing us to do this, and Mike Goodpaster. Any final thoughts about the Musketeers? We'll try to be on early next week so we can preview the Charleston Classic. Any final thoughts, Bill?
Hey, let's go out and get a big W on a Friday evening and get the team ready to head out and play away from the Centos Center for the first time and be successful in that endeavor.
All right. Well, we'll finish it with Go Muskies.
Go Muskies.